Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to welcome Nawar Shora to the show. He spent 2 decades plus at the Center of Intersection of Civil Rights and National Security. He started the FBI Academy, the National Counterterrorism Center. He's also a lawyer by training, and he's got a new book, Muslims, Arabs, and Arab Americans. It's really a clear introduction for people who don't know much about either Arabs or Muslims. Even though if you listen to my show, I hope you know about a little about both. Nawar, welcome back. Welcome to the show, my friend. Nice to have you on.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
And congrats on the book. Now, it's interesting. You work in this setting where you do national security, civil rights. But part of that, it appears to me, is because you go out there and you speak to groups, is countering misconceptions and stereotypes, in this case about Arabs and Muslims. Is that part of the work?
It's been part of the work since 2001, since 9/11. I graduated law school in 2001. And as you recall, everything just flipped on its head. And almost immediately, I realized just beneath the surface, there's this pretty strong intersect between the civil rights community and the counterterrorism intelligence national security community. At the same time as I was banging on my hand at DOJ Maine saying NSEERS is a bad program,
Right.
I was literally training FBI new agents saying, here's here's who we are and here's who we're not. Mohammed Atta does not represent the entirety of the Arab or Muslim world.
Right.
And so they go hand in hand.
It's interesting, though, that it's a more nuanced, people have to think it through to understand why it would be. So what's the goal? The book is Muslims, Arabs, and Arab Americans. And it's really detailed. It's a good read. It's funny at times. And you go through like Arab 101 for people and Muslim 101 and Arab Americans, and even little bit about the Arab world. So what is your hope if people read this book?
My hope is, I'll give you an example, Dean. Every Friday we go karaoke and it's fun. It's great. It's a little dark biker bar in Northern Virginia. And last week, literally this past week, there was this gentleman tattooed up and tough and whatever, and literally on his forearm in Arabic, it said kafir.
Wow.
Infidel in Arabic, right? And the idiot in me, of course, wanted to walk up to him and be like, "Excuse me, sir, do you worship the sun god?" Or like, because I'm betting he was probably Christian, at least of an Abrahamic faith, right?
Right.
And it's these stories that make me think, time out. We are letting the bad actors, be it Al-Qaeda or ISIS or whomever, define the parameters. We're playing in their home field if our well-intentioned patriots or veterans or whomever think, oh yeah, I'm a kafir, I'm an infidel. I knew a guy who had a bumper sticker, kafir and proud. Let's call him Bob. And I'm like, Bob, you're Catholic Italian. You're a person of the book. You're a brother of mine, you're not an infidel. And it's almost like he was offended, like, no, I am an infidel. He was this tough, macho military dude. And so that's the goal, is to reach every Joe and Jane out there, not so you can write a dissertation on Arab, Middle Eastern history, Muslim history, whatever, but just because we're your neighbors. We are, I'm tired of this myopic divisiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody puts on their blinders and it's my people. And it's gotten so bad, whether it's red or blue, whether it's Israel, Palestine, you name it, everything has become my people and everybody else is evil. And I'm trying to come in with this truly inclusive message saying we're all Americans, more so we're all humans. If that little Palestinian American boy who was stabbed and killed happened to be a little Jewish boy, the haters would have still celebrated. I keep saying this, I've said this to a multitude of people, the haters are united. Why can't the rest of us be? So.
It's a good point. In your book, you mention a line, I am a proud American by choice. Can you share a little bit about why that is and why that is for so many immigrants who have chosen this country?
Sure. We're still the greatest country on earth. I say I'm lucky enough to be an American by choice. I'm an immigrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
My son is first gen. I came here, I say, as a short, fat, hairy Arab Muslim kid to small town West Virginia in the 1980s at the peak of airline hijackings. So this cultural demystification training I've been doing it professionally for 23 years, but really I've been doing it for about 34 years because at an early age I'd say, no, we don't own a camel. No, I didn't grow up in the desert. I actually grew up on the Red Sea, So it's the journey of every immigrant group. And I don't know when your families came through, but I remember you saying you're Palestinian Sicilian, and I love that mix. And your jokes stay with me because you're so authentic, right? And so it's it's our turn now, right? And
Sure.
because we say post 9/11, and that was 20 years ago, but that world is still very fresh for a lot of people. I met a chief of police last year in Middle America who said every day in my department is September 12th, 2001.
Wow.
That was in 2023. So we may think in the big metropolises in Chicago or New York or DC that, oh, we've moved on. That was 20 years ago. We haven't moved on. And if you go into those echo chambers and do deep dives, you'll see that this, again, this myopic divisiveness is still very strong. So my hope is to kind of break down those walls.
I want to see a picture of that guy's office, see if all the technology is still locked in September 12th, 2001.
Right.
Like he just got over Y2K. He was freaking out for a while about Y2K. He's a little calmer now. He has no real cell phones. You know, he's got like old fashioned cell phones. So it's kind of, I'm chatting with Nawar Shora about his book, Muslims, Arabs, and Arab Americans. So let's do a little Arab 101 for people. How many Arab Americans do you estimate based on the data that we have? And I know it's kind of estimations are involved. How many Arab Americans are in the United States now?
Ballpark, they say about 3 to 4 million in the United States, right? But if we go Arab Americans, big picture, including all of North America and all of South America, it's like 30 to 40 million, right?
Wow.
What we affectionately call Arabtinos. And I used to work with a Kuwaiti Mexican, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm an Arabtina." I'm like, "Wait, is that racist? Can I say that?" Anyway,
Right. What did she say? You
she
could
said
probably
no.
say,
Yeah, I got the blessing from her, so it's good to go. But it's, as you may know, it's an older community group, similar to, let's say, Irish or Italian in New England, right? I'm Boston, but I'm Ireland, and everybody kind of gets that. So it's an older, more entrenched community in Latin America than the United States. United States, ballpark about 3 to 4 million.
so what caused, and you touch on this in your book, what caused the first wave of Arab Americans to come here? Because there's been waves. My father is in the second, sort of in between the waves, to be honest. So what was the first wave of Arabs coming here?
Certainly. And keep in mind, most Arab Americans are actually Christian, about 75%
Yeah.
of Christian,
Mm-hmm.
right? Most Muslim Americans are overwhelmingly either African American or South Asian. There were two big push, even though Arabs and Muslims have been coming to this land since pre-America, since as early as the 1500s, right? Supposedly, Columbus's navigator was, a closeted Muslim Arab, clearly not a very good one, of course, but you know what? We'll take it. Uh,
Sure.
But the first wave was leaving what was then the Ottoman Empire, coming to the New World, predominantly Christians, late 19th, early 20th century. Second wave, mostly Muslim from all over the Arab world, flying in post-World War II. To some extent, people say it's still ongoing, but less so. And with typical immigrant behavior, people either stay in those comfort zones, the same way you've got little Havanas, Irish towns, Chinatown, you've got Arab neighborhoods, largest being, of course, Dearborn, Michigan. If you haven't been, great food,
Oh, I've been there.
right? So, but again, my message isn't just to say, pet me, I'm special. Look at me, I'm Arab. Look at me, I'm Muslim. It's, I say I walk around with a post-it note on my forehead that says, I'm Arab, I'm Muslim, ask me a question. I want that engagement, right?
Right.
Well, people, if you think I hate you, let's talk about it. Why do you think I hate you? You think you hate me? Let's talk about it. I'm probably much closer to you than you realize. And so to me, it's more so to not even bridge two sides. I disagree with Sam Huntington's concept of a clash of civilizations. I don't believe there's a clash of civilizations. I think at worst, it's a misunderstanding of civilizations. And
Mm-hmm.
it's up to those of us who are lucky enough to be touching several to say, look, we're not even bridging two sides. Just look to your left. I'm right there. Right. And that's where I know I'm an idealist. I know sometimes that's too dreamy, but that's kind of been my mission for over 2 decades, no matter what happens.
And I think it's important that we are only divided between Cowboy fans and anti-Cowboy fans. And I hate the Cowboys. So if you hate the Dallas Cowboys, you're on my team. I don't care your politics. No, I do care your politics. Who am I kidding? In your book, you took about people's responses when Arab or Muslim come up, and you mentioned obviously the obvious ones like terrorism. What else did you hear in terms of misconceptions that people have? Then we'll get to the good response that you heard.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, it's great. So my favorite question on there, my seminar, my book is just a quiz. It's a 10-question quiz.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tease that out into 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever the audience, 1 hour, depending on the audience. And question 4 is my favorite question on there. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the term Arab or Muslim? And I tell especially, live, it's hilarious, especially with law enforcement and others. And I'm like, you're walking down the street, minding your own business. I run up to you and I'm like, Arab, Muslim, what pops into your head right before you punched me? And they're like, terrorist, all the racial epithets, of course. The funny ones are Aladdin. I swear I've done this for 2 decades, and every single class somebody says Aladdin. Usually they mean the 1990 Disney cartoon,
Sure.
which is fine. But when we take up the magnifying glass, Aladdin is horrible, right? Because it's all the fictitious Arab city of Agrabah. All the protagonists, all the good guys, Aladdin, Jasmine, the king, are drawn white. They have normal, non-crooked, non-Semitic noses. They speak perfect English. Jafar, all the antagonists, all the bad guys are brown. They have big crooked noses, more crooked than mine. Mine's not that bad, but I
Hmm.
it'll eventually intersect with my chin.
Right.
That's between me and my therapist. And heavy Arab accents and poor posture, right? So on a very subtle level, even Aladdin's saying, oh, if they're look and sound like us, they're the good guys. If they look and sound different, they're the bad guys. It wasn't until I think Aladdin 3, straight on video, whatever it was, Jafar rises yet again, that they made everybody beige, right? Heaven forbid we're doing.
Ah,
So yeah, I mean, so Aladdin, it's some of the funny ones are, again, those mainstream stereotypes, 7-Eleven, taxi driver, gas station attendant. I had a
what about
cop,
foods?
well,
I
I
think
had
foods, that's the
Slurpee.
weird thing. What?
I had a cop say Slurpee,
Slurp, that wasn't the right food, dummy. The foods are more like chicken and rice, like the like spinach pie, like fataya.
but
Or to me, when
I
I think Arab, if I'm of Arab heritage, I think of food. I don't even know why. It's
eat.
like, and I've even joked in my act where people are like, "Oh, you're Arab. I love hummus," and I'm just like, "Well, you're welcome. I didn't wasn't my idea, but I'm happy that you like. I'm not a big fan of hummus personally. I'm not to get into that, but I do like I love Middle Eastern food. I like it a great deal. It's probably my staple of food because it's so accessible. People don't even know it. They go Greek, Turkish, Lebanese, Middle Eastern. It's chicken and rice is like the staple. I love chicken and rice. I eat it all the time. Dajaj, I'm like all the time.
Right, right.
So I'm chatting with a friend Nawar Shora here about his book, Muslims, Arabs, and Arab Americans. And I really recommend it. People can get it on Amazon, of course, because they'll learn a lot. And it's written in a very conversational way where it is a little quiz, but it lays out facts for people. And people who listen to the show are always about want to get smarter, unless they're MAGA supporters. But we won't get into that. If they're on the left, they want to get smarter. So then there's the other thing about positive things you've heard when people have said, what comes to mind about being Arab or Muslim? What can you share about that?
Certainly. So most people are in that middle area of the innocent pop culture perceptions and misperceptions, what we
Right.
just discussed. Then you get a small group of the racial epithets, the ugly words, all pretty much everything I got called as a kid, and that's okay. And then even fewer the extreme positives, right? Whether it's the first alphabet, whether it's the numeral system, right? We were embarrassed internationally a few years ago when I forget if it was The Guardian or BBC, one of the British presses did a survey among American adults, should Arabic numerals be taught at US schools?
Right.
And I forget the exact percentage, but let's say it's like 38% said absolutely not. Oops,
Yeah.
too late. You know, algebra, which I always joke belongs in the negatives right below terrorism. Like, I don't know about you all.
Right.
I sucked at it. But very few extreme positives. And then it's fun to kind of share with people about when you look up at the sky and you see Orion in the sky and the foot of Orion is Rigel. What's Rigel? And people are like, Bob Rigel discovered it. No, Rigel is a poor transliteration of the Arabic Rijal. Literally, it's the foot of the giant. Or staying in Orion, Beetlejuice or Beetlegeist or however you're supposed to pronounce it, right? It's the arm of the giant, but it's another Arabic transliteration. Bat Joza, literally like the underarm or the shoulder of the giant, right? You say his name 3 times, he shows up, but he speaks Arabic.
Yeah, that's it. Even funny and scary at the same time. It's very interesting. The so and I asked you about how many Arab Americans. I also want to make sure that we don't mush things together. How many Muslim Americans are they? And you touch a little bit on the breakdown between the two, but I want people to understand there's an overlap, but they're distinct communities at the same time.
Correct. I'm a minority within a minority. I happen to be of Arab extraction. I happen to be Muslim, right? But most Arab Americans are Christian, and most Muslim Americans are not Arab. So Muslims in America, I think numbers range between 8 to 10 million. And again, they're overwhelmingly either African American or South Asian. By South Asian, I mean people from Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and so on.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time that they don't get this, that especially the fact that the biggest component of Muslim Americans are African American, and that Islam was brought here through slavery. It was
Right.
here pre the United States of America. It helped build this country because slaves helped build this country, and a subset were Muslim. In fact, in Alex Haley's Roots, he goes back and finds out Kunta Kinte is that were Muslim, and they
Right.
came here, and then they became Christian. A lot of them forced to, or just their faith faded away because there's no way to practice it. But it's very interesting when you watch the second Roots, not the first one. I don't remember it as well, but the second one, I'm like, oh my gosh, there he is. It's Muslim. So how does the role of the media, and it's something I deal with a great deal of the time, because the media is bigger than any minority community, and every minority knows this, that corporate media can define you. And when I say corporate, I mean entertainment and news media can define your community in ways that you can't, because they're much bigger than us. So what have you seen, and what stands out in terms of U.S. media and the way they define both the Arab and Muslim communities?
Sure. I'll have two quick stories. One, Jack Shaheen, who's passed away from
Sure,
us, was
great
a
guy.
mentor to me. He guided me with my first book. Look up to him, and I cite his research often. Um, and he went through his book, Real Bad Arabs. He went through the history of film from I think 1923 through 2003, and I think it was 900 some films, and he placed them into the good, the bad, and the ugly list. And I always ask people, I'm like, how many do you think made the good list of 900 some movies? I think it's like 12, Dean. 12 made the good list, right? And this segues into the other story, and then I'll answer your question
Sure.
properly. I was speaking at a law firm years ago, and one of the partners, an old Jewish lady, looks at me and she's very enthralled and she's very excited. She's like, you know what you all need? You need a sitcom. Look at what Seinfeld did for us.
Right.
15, 20 years ago, I was like, yes, ma'am, you're right. Love it. But if there was a show about nothing called The Khalids, inevitably at some point it would be like, so now we killed them, right? They
Right.
would
Right. Right.
slide in something negative. Today, are we there yet? No, but do we have shows like Mo and Rami and, again, Rami Youssef just hosted SNL, which is, of course, is huge.
Sure.
Clearly, the only Arab Americans allowed to host SNL are of Egyptian extraction and named Rami, right?
Yeah,
Because we
because
had Rami
Rami
Malek,
Malek
Rami
and
Youssef.
yep.
That's it. You're out of luck. I'm out of luck. So I
What
might
can you
change
do?
my name. And but we're not there yet because I don't know about you, and I think in our culture generally it's like, oh, you become a business person or you become a doctor, and there's no in between. You go to Hollywood. No, that's not a real job.
Hmm.
Um, but we struggle. And part of it is that, I was a journalism major in college, did a lot of research on the impact of media on the viewer and the reader. Today we have social media and blogs and Reddit, and so much shapes our perceptions and our misperceptions. And when there is a glimmer of hope for positive, we don't get the image. I'm a big Batman fan. Batman Begins, Liam Neeson's character, Ra's al Ghul, in the comics is an Arab character. Ras al Ghul, literally the head of the ghoul, the head of the monster.
Hmm.
Like it's a cool, complex villain. It's not this
Sure.
one-dimensional, kill the white American idiocy, and they give it to an Irish guy, right? Like that's where I think we we still have room to grow, whether it's through sitcoms, through accurate portrayals. Jake Gyllenhaal playing Prince of Persia, which of course are
I
not
remember
Arabic,
that.
right? There's all these different things where I'm like, well, if it's a cool character, why are we whitewashing it? There's even talk now, and I tweeted at Denzel and Antoine Fuqua, but they didn't respond, right?
Okay.
They're doing Hannibal, the story of Hannibal, not Lecter, but Hannibal in history, right? Fought the Romans on horseback, I mean, on elephant back and so on. Hannibal was Phoenician, right? He probably looked like you and I. He was olive complexion with a big nose, probably fairly hairy, right? I know you shaved right before our
I
call,
did actually, literally, I did actually. I
right?
have to shave right after we're done,
This is
or
my
my beard
five
will
o'clock
grow in.
shadow. I shaved
Right.
this morning, so
Right.
this is actually my Wolverine look, but that's another
It's a
issue.
big movie this summer. It's gonna be big.
Yeah,
You're gonna be great.
I want it to be the multiverse Arab version of Wolverine, but no takers. But Denzel is supposed to be playing Hannibal. Denzel wouldn't have looked like Hannibal, right? So it's not just whitewashing, it's blackwashing, whatever you want to call it, but it's not being authentic to the history, right? Hannibal was Phoenician. Phoenicians took over all sorts of lands and explored around the Mediterranean. Again, they were from the Fertile Crescent. They were not dark skin. That's not to say dark skin is bad. That's to say Arabs today are a cross mix of that color spectrum.
Certainly.
You've got black Arabs, you've got very white Arabs, and everybody in between. But historically, if we're trying to be accurate, Hannibal would have been olive complected, right? And
It's an interesting point because the authenticity helps the story generally, and it informs the actor, whoever that or actress who's doing it, and also in the bigger picture, it then creates people who are stars from our community or any minority community who then can greenlight the next project. Where if they want to tell a story about their own community again, that's how it works, and that's why the struggle through. How do things like weigh on your work when you have events beyond your control, like the Gaza war, and there was a spike in backlash against Arabs and Muslims? I think that's kind of calmed down a little bit. But I know there was a huge spike. CARE and other groups had been noting a big spike in a lot of anti-Arab, anti-Muslim comments and even hate crimes that happened. You mentioned the young Palestinian boy being killed in the Chicago area, Illinois area. So how does that impact your work?
I would love to put myself out of work. I would love to just write poetry and retire on a beach, right? And I've
Sure.
said that for 20 years. So it just adds more to the need to bring greater understanding. Uh, my secret formula for years has been communication plus understanding equals trust, right? Our biggest challenge is lack of trust. If we don't trust one another, or we're afraid to trust one another, all sorts of cancers creep into our mind. But if I truly understand you, I don't have to agree with you, but I truly understand your perspective. And if I can effectively communicate with you, then the trust will organically blossom. When it comes to the increased hate crimes, and not just against Arabs and Muslims, but we should also include against Jews and Jewish
Sure.
students, and so on, right?
Mhm.
It just reminds me that there's so much misunderstanding, there's so much miscommunication, and there's so much mistrust that the work just needs to be done. And I did panels with Muslim groups and Jewish groups actually saying, okay, we're leaving the politics aside. We're just here to talk about how similar we are, how similar our faiths are, how similar our communities are, and how hated our communities are. Again, the haters are united, right? When I go worship on Fridays, when I can, I go to a synagogue. It's been my synagogue since 2007, and I love it, and I proudly say that. Except every time I'm there, Dean, I think, what do I do when the crazy man with the AK-47 comes in? Because to the haters, it's double points. It's Jews and Muzzies. Great,
Right.
right? Two for one. And
Sure.
so I'm thinking, where's the exit? What could I use as a barricade? Could I use my water bottle as a weapon? What, right? Unfortunately, that's what's in the back of my head. The haters don't care. The Sikh Gurdwara attack in Wisconsin years
I
ago
remember
now,
that.
right? The neo-Nazi who attacked them thought he was attacking Muslims.
Yep.
So it's not just Muslim and Jewish. It's all of thems. The haters don't care. You're different than I. You're the bad guy. You're the villain.
It's and it's true. And with minority faiths, we have so much in common in our experiences in America. We should be united in that we can put politics aside about policy towards the Middle East, but on combating hate against either of our communities, because we know where that is. And I think sometimes it gets lost in the discussions where people, to be blunt, some people want to silence criticism of certain things in the Middle East, let's say. So they will say, oh, you can't say that kind of stuff. And that hurts the bond that we're going to have with our community. And that's why for 20 something years, as long or 25 years, as long as I've been an adult following things, that's the idea of if there was peace in the Middle East, really a just peace, how that would help Muslim-Jewish relations in this country, which are generally fine, to be blunt, except for heated times like right after October 7th, people got really emotional. I understood that, but we'd be even closer. We could, because there's no divide religiously between the communities. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with policy about the Middle East. That's the only thing. And at the same time, there are so many progressive Jews and Muslims who work together on issues about the Middle East, which has been great. And I love working with them. Jewish Voices Peace and others come on my show all the time and talk about things. So it's an interesting time. So Nawar, if people want to get the book, again, the book, I really recommend it. Muslims, Arabs, and Arab Americans. It's a great read, folks. You'll learn so much. It's an easy read. Where do you recommend people pick up the book?
They can just go to Amazon. That's fine. Jeff Bezos and I will email, so it's good. They can find me on LinkedIn if they're interested in like booking me for a seminar or whatever. But to order the book, it's on Amazon. So
Nawar, well, congratulations on the book. It was really nice chatting with you. And we'll talk again in the future, definitely when there's issues about bringing communities together, cutting through stereotypes, because that keeps coming up over and over. Have a great night. Have a great day, my friend.